Welcome back to another galactic episode of the Show. We are two geeks who talk about everything. My name is Aaron, and I'm joined by my cousin and co-host Landon.
Good day. To
What
the end.
is happening?
To the end of the originals.
The
Oh,
original. So yeah, we are continuing our discussion of the Star Trek films, and wrapping up our discussion of the original cast. This is the last film in which the first crew of the Enterprise takes center stage. Star Trek Six: The Undiscovered Country. This movie is it's very different than what came immediately previous. If you listen to our last episode, you know what amazing thoughts we had about Star Trek Five. This one gets back into the hands of some fairly talented writers and talented director. Nicholas Meyer, who directed Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, came back to direct this one. Leonard Nimoy had a hand in the script again with this one. I can't remember who else was a part of writing this, but the concept that they went with, they sort of asked the question, what if the Berlin Wall fell in space? So, at the time that this movie came out, it recently the USSR had fallen apart. So there's no more Soviet Union. The Berlin Wall had been knocked down, and so you've got East and West Germany unifying. And that's history, kids. You probably didn't know that at one point Germany was two different countries. It was East and West Germany, and but once that wall came down, it wasn't a thing anymore. And so the idea was, you've got this thing that happens with the Klingons. Their moon Praxis is destroyed. It just explodes. And this is the catalyst for the Klingon Empire basically coming to the Federation for aid. And that's sort of what happened with Chernobyl here in real life. You had Chernobyl, it exploded, and it wasn't long after that that the Soviet Union, they're coming to the West for aid and falling apart and becoming the separate individual countries independent of the communist government. So it's a really fascinating look at what happens when you've got two, let's call them both empires. I know the Federation isn't an empire, but you've got these two governments that are
superpower.
fundamentally two superpowers. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
that's that's the right word. That are fundamentally opposite of each other, but forced to come together and try and find a peaceful coexistence. Um, and then you get Star Trek Six, and it is by far. I go back and forth whether this one or two are my favorite. Like, I sometimes this one is. It usually just depends on which one I've seen most recently.
Yeah. This one will always be my favorite. I think it's because it's the first one that I saw. Um, and then that got me to then watch the ones before it. But I loved it. As I appreciate it far more as an adult than I did when I was a kid. As a kid, I loved it because I just thought it was cool, and the betrayal, and you had the space fighting with, you know, purple blood flying all around, and I mean,
It's
and
more fuchsia. It's
oh,
fuchsia.
fuchsia, sorry. But, and then of course you have them on stranded on the planet, and the prison, and the shapeshifters. You have, like, I mean, there's so many cool things for a kid, to just really enjoy about it, even if you don't understand the politics. As an adult, I look at it and I'm like, wow, it's epic. You have so many things in conflict, and you have a person with a voice for peace on the Klingon side
Right.
that is trying to bring this humanitarian effort. You have a daughter who is so skeptical of that. You know what I mean? And as you know, Gorkin dies, she is now just completely um turned, and all that. And then that has to be brought back to peace as the plot is uncovered. And so I think it's really cool. Obviously, Christopher Plummer, what an incredible bad guy as,
Oh yeah.
yeah, General Chang. And just his they made it like, obviously he's this general, he's got this, I suppose you'd say, um I don't know if it's supposed to be like almost like a shogun kind of a depiction of him, but he's also got this extremely well-read literary. He's like Sun Tzu's Art of War
Oh yeah.
mixed in with
Yeah.
Alexander the Great, and he's just an incredible bad guy.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for me, I look at it and I see all the things coming together with Kirk and finally them addressing his grief with his son and how that plays out in these conflicts. And then you deal with all of these different opinions and feelings against each other, them against the humans against the Klingons, and all of these things that you have to put aside in order to find a path forward for peace. Anyway, that's a long way of saying liked it.
Um, sorry, I got choked up a little bit.
Well, I
Yeah,
have that effect, and so sorry,
it's no, you're fine. You're fine. I just the emotion. Uh, yeah. From the beginning, you get great performances from everybody. This time around, this is like we said, this is at the other end of the spectrum from Star Trek Five.
Yeah,
Because you really are, you're getting good writing, you're getting good performances from the actors, you're getting a great story that makes sense in the scheme of the history of what's happening in the Star Trek universe. Um, because by this point, we've already been introduced to the next generation. We know what happens, um, you know, uh, over the next 100 years,
yeah, and having a
with
war.
Starfleet, and you've got a Klingon serving on the bridge of the Enterprise. So at some point, that means that there's got to be some sort of agreement between the Klingon Empire and the Federation that they're able to at least work together, if
Right,
not have the Klingons part of the Federation,
right,
which is not where they go, but they do find a way to coexist and they find that peace. And like you said, it's amazing that it's the Klingon Chancellor that's the one who's extending that olive branch and attempting, because from what we know about the Klingons is this is a warrior race,
yeah. They
and
don't
for
want
them,
peace.
right, for them to offer peace is, well, for Kirk it's hard to swallow. He cannot believe that this is something that they genuinely want. He
Right,
thinks that
it's a
this is
play.
right. This is a
Yeah,
ploy to weaken the Federation and to strike when we've got our backs turned. Um, and it leads to, like, at the again, this is at the very beginning. It's a powerful scene between Kirk and Spock, because Spock is almost the architect of the Federation side of this diplomatic mission, right?
right,
And he has volunteered the Enterprise. He's volunteered Kirk as the leader of this diplomatic mission to meet the Chancellor
right,
and to escort them into Federation space. Um, and Kirk is just livid about it. He does not want to be a part of this.
right,
He's saying, "Don't believe them. Don't trust them." And
right.
then Spock, it's this
And then
back and forth is
let
very,
them die.
yeah.
That
He
line,
he says they are dying. Let them die.
let them die. What a line.
I
Um,
know. Oh my gosh, it's
but
so powerful.
that dinner scene was really good because you saw the conflict, just rising, or when they're having drinks or whatever. Yeah, no, it was a dinner scene. That's right. And but
They're
I
also
think
drinking
there's
Romulan ale.
Romulan. I think the one thing too that's interesting is you have all these different powers that are supporting war, like that are in the background, and Chang is part of that. General Chang, they're all like, we work best when we're in conflict. We want there to be fighting. We want there to be this union that the humans and the Romulans and Chang have. is based upon saying, we want to fight. We like having this conflict. We don't want demilitarization. We don't want, and I think some shows, I think about 24, and I think about shows that have had these government entities and these people in power, these military leaders that profit off of it, but even just from a pride standpoint in their national mindset, they are opposed to, they don't want to see a world without the fighting, you know? And this really comes to grips with the fact that you can't get to peace without making sure that those things are, you put away your misgivings, you put away your suppositions, your prejudice, you know? And I mean there's just so much to unpack, you know, with that, but it's such a great movie. I really, and I don't know if there's anything that I don't like about it. I find that one of the reasons that it's really good is because, like two, you got a really good bad guy. Like
Yeah.
you have a really good bad guy, but you also have this I don't, this situation, like with Genesis, for example, with 2 and 3. You have this situation that causes an entire effect on the known galaxy, and you have the reactions of that from a political standpoint, and then you have the dealing with it right in the heart of it. And so I think it's so cool that way. That it's a shame that of the originals, there were only really 2 to 3 movies, I think, that really did this in a great way. But 6 makes up for all the other wrongdoings of the other ones to me.
Yeah. Gosh, there's, like you said, there's so much that can be unpacked from this uh just this discussion of Star Trek 6. And um gosh, everything that comes to it. You mentioned, having to put aside their prejudices, and that's exactly where we find Kirk. Obviously he hates the Klingons, always has. And it's not that they've given him more and more reason over the years to hate them,
Right.
especially with the murder of his son. Why on earth, why in the galaxy would he, of all people, want to give them a chance at life? Um, Something that confuses me though about this conspiracy that's going on behind the scenes, with Chang and with oh, what's her name? Kim Cattrall's character, Valeris.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Um, and Admiral Cartwright, and so many of these key players that are behind the scenes manipulating things to where the piece would fail. Um, for one thing, I feel like if somebody had gotten to Kirk before all of this began, they could have gotten him on board with going against the peace.
Yeah.
And like, if Admiral Cartwright had gone to Jim early on, like at the start, like as soon as Praxis exploded, he probably could have gotten him on board with this whole conspiracy. And then Jim would have been like, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. Let's take him down.
The only
Uh,
thing that I can think against it would be the fact that Kirk has constantly been unpredictable, and one you can't like just bring into the fold for whatever plan or plot you have. You know what I
right.
mean? He's like,
He's,
he's
he's a wild
cowboy.
card.
He's a wild card, yeah. Um
Yeah, he's gonna do what he's gonna do.
yeah, I think I only have trouble with the part that Chang, he's so smart. He's so smart. I feel like he was very easily defeated.
Well, I don't understand why Chang or why any of the Klingons would be against this peace treaty, because the facts that we know after Praxis explodes is that the Klingon homeworld, their atmosphere has been poisoned. And
Right.
so, this is why, well, they say, what, in 50 years the planet will be uninhabitable. I assume something happens you know, in between Star Trek 6 and Next Generation, because Kronos is still there and the
Surely
Klingons
there's no
still
plot
live
hole
there.
there, you know?
Right. But obviously there's some aid that comes from the Federation to maybe terraform the planet, and so they're
Sure,
able
sure.
to
Genesis.
the Genesis device. That's right. No, they go in. They it's almost like the Klingon Empire doesn't have the resources to fix their own environment because so much of their spending is in uh defense
You've
or
got to know though that there's plenty of people, on Russia's side that during the whole Chernobyl thing were like, then we die. I'd die. I'd have us suffer and die before I get help from the West.
that is a good point. You're a good warrior, and so I'd rather die in battle than be on my knees at the Federation's table
That's
begging for
exactly right.
scraps.
And to me, every one of them that was opposed would think that way.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
The Kim Cattrall thing though is that's pretty powerful scene when Spock, understands that she's, a liar, or she's been
Yeah.
deceiving them. And he does that thing, and she is, I mean, that was a great scene because he's, I know he's very level-headed and all that, but I feel like those finger marks were very well indentioned into her face, you
Well, yeah,
know?
and because you can tell that he is angry with her
Oh, yeah.
for her betrayal, and so when he does that mind meld, it is it's I'm sure it's difficult, and it's portrayed, and they both do a great job. It's
They
difficult for
do.
both of them because in in Vulcan society, to perform a mind meld on somebody against their will
Yeah,
is
yeah,
akin
yeah.
to rape.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so that is he is assaulting her by performing this mind meld, and in his anger is probing her to the point where it's painful for her. Like
Right.
she starts screaming toward the end of it.
Right, right.
And so I think, gosh, they both did a great job. I do want to bring this up. Did you know that initially this new character was not supposed to be a new character at all? It was supposed to be Savick.
Savick. I wondered, when I was a kid, I thought they were the same person. You know what I mean? Not because, I mean, their names are different, but as a kid when I wasn't paying attention to the full plot stuff, I thought they were the same person. So when I got older and I watched him again, I was like, "Oh wait, she's just a different character." Because they had changed her, already, and then we
Yeah,
didn't
they just
really have
recast her again.
female. Yeah, yeah, we didn't really have female many Vulcans that we saw, and so I was I just mistakenly thought that way as a kid. But I could see that. It makes sense that that would have been her. I'm
Yeah,
glad
I
they
think it
didn't
would
do
have been
it though,
interesting.
because she has been, you know, cons though, if they had it been her, you could see how she was affected having been there with David when he died. And
Right.
she could have developed her own prejudice that would have been in the Klingon way. It is illogical that a Klingon can be anything other than what they are. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and also originally in Star Trek 2, I don't know if you can I don't know if you've noticed the difference in the way that Kirstie Alley played Savick and the way that Robin, I can't remember her last
Yeah,
name, played her in 3 and 4.
yeah.
She's very very even keel in 3 and 4. No emotions
Yeah.
whatsoever,
No
very Vulcan.
emotions.
But in 2, you can see her welling up at Spock's funeral.
Right.
It's clear that she does experience emotions. And so part of that was, I think they had in kind of their headcanon in making 2 that Savick was actually half Romulan.
Oh,
And so because of that, she would have been more open to her emotional state. Um, and I think that would have been interesting to play into the character if they had brought her into 6, because
yeah.
then once again you're dealing with somebody who has divided loyalties between the Federation and the Romulan Star Empire, and that means that okay, we can get somebody from the Romulan, because the Romulans did
That would have
have
brought it together. Yeah,
people in
that could have
inside
been
this
good.
conspiracy, so that
Yeah.
could have been interesting.
The I think one thing I have trouble with Vulcans is that I feel like they're not in all the different shows that we've watched, they're not very consistent with their portrayal. And the hard part is you have Spock that's half human and half Vulcan, and he is often better at managing his emotions than the Vulcans who have purged themselves with their little ritual from all emotion. And so we find constantly, the Vulcans who are angry or not just condescending. It's different. They're clearly irritated. You know what I mean? And irritation is an emotion. It's different from being what's logical or illogical. There is irritation, frustration, that's even Sabic exhibits, all of them exhibit. And I don't feel like Spock exhibits as more than anyone else when I see another Vulcan. I think it's crazy. I think it's sometimes just silly how they don't make them completely robotic. You know what I mean? As opposed to Spock, who you should see little flickers every once in a while.
Well, so I think about this, and I know this is off topic from Star Trek Six, but thinking about just Vulcans and Spock in particular, I feel like Spock, the way that the actors who portray Spock have played it, it's almost like Spock has to try harder
Yeah,
to keep his emotions in check, and so he is constantly at odds with himself, but pushing himself to suppress those emotions
yeah,
because he's aware of his human side.
gotcha.
Whereas, it's always been said that it's not that Vulcans don't experience emotions, they experience their emotions much more, I guess,
Passionately, or
yeah, more
yeah.
with more passion than humans do. They just suppress it. And so
I
it's
feel like they don't suppress it as well as Spock does. You
right.
know?
And I, like I said, I think that's part of Spock's deal, is that
Yeah.
he is aware of his human side, and so he pushes himself harder than your
Than even
average
they do.
Vulcan needs
Yeah.
to because they think, oh, I'm a 100% Vulcan, I just don't have emotions. That's
Yeah.
not how it works. And Spock is aware of this and has to make up for that fact. Um, I don't know. That's just, for me. That's just maybe headcanon kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But that's the way I see it. Not just from Leonard Nimoy, but from what's his name, who plays him on Strange New
Discovery Strange. Oh,
Worlds.
Stranger Worlds. Yeah, yeah.
Um, does a great
Whatever his
job
name
with
is.
it.
He's great. He's my favorite Spock outside of Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, well, what did you think about one of the most memorable scenes for me is when they're on the planet, they get condemned. We do have to talk about Worf at some point, but let's get back to that. But they get, sentenced to go down to the planet, McCoy and Kirk. They get down
Pente,
there, huh? Which
Runa Pente.
Rurapente. They get down there and they meet this very attractive, clone. And I think it's just
She's a
hilarious.
shapeshifter.
Not clones, shapeshifters. I'm sorry, wrong word. But they meet this shapeshifter. I just love that part about them. She kisses him and all that stuff. Then she morphs into this big guy and all that. The part when she turns into him and they're talking to each other, that's such a fun, memorable part for me. I love that whole scene.
I never even kissed you. Must have been your life's ambition.
Must be your life's ambition. That was pretty
One of my
good.
favorite lines comes from toward the end when Spock and McCoy are performing surgery on the torpedo, so it can be like a not a heat-seeking torpedo, but looking for the I guess whatever residue is being put off by the cloaked
The
ship,
cloak, yeah.
the bird of prey, and they're in there, and they can still hear Chang over the loudspeaker, like constantly quoting Shakespeare, and he's like manic. He's cry and let slip the dogs of war. And then Spock's like, I'd pay real money if he just shut up. That might be
That's a
one of my
great
favorite
line.
lines of all Star Trek. Just Spock, just he's fed up. He's like, I'd pay real money if he'd shut up.
That's so good. All right, let's talk about Worf. So, all right, so
Actually, Worf,
time,
right? That's Worf's grandfather.
yeah, clearly Worf's grandfather. Still, it's like, come on. You know what I mean?
It's just
They
fan
had him on
service.
there. But I didn't know the timeline. So so Next Generation was out, but Yar was in the role of what Worf would later become as security because she dies,
Right.
right? But was he in the show? I haven't watched the Next Generation. Was he in the show prior to her dying?
Yeah, he was there from the beginning.
Okay, he was there. I need to watch him again. So he was there from the beginning, and then this was still season one. When did Next Generation come out? Was it in season one at that point? It was 1991 that this came out, right?
Yeah. So they would have been in season three,
Oh,
three or
really? So it
four.
was 89, 88, 89.
So the it Next Generation premiered in '87, the fall of
Oh,
'87.
87. So it had already been around
Yeah.
for a
So
bit.
this they would have been into probably the beginning of season four when this came out.
Okay, so Worf is well established, and they just thought it'd be cool to have Worf's grandfather as like
Right.
a
Yeah. Like I said,
judge
it was
defending humans.
just fan service to have Michael Dorn come in there and play Worf, or play his grandfather as the defense attorney, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's funny. Son of Moog.
Yeah. Worf, son of Moog.
I guess Moog, son of Worf.
Moog. Well, wow, is so is because they called him Worf, right?
They called him
So is
Worf.
Worf named after his grandfather?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. All right. What are we looking at here? Yeah, we're almost out of time. So time flew on this one. It seemed to go
It
kind of
was
slow
easy
on
too.
Star Trek 5, but Star Trek 6 we moved pretty fast. Any final thoughts? Any favorites lines? I know I shared mine. Any other favorites from you before we wrap up?
I would have said that this was the perfect send off and ending for for the originals. And for the crew and stuff it was, but I love how Generations handles, the end of Kirk. And
Mhm.
so it's almost like this was to me a great way to end out, the series. It didn't have to be everybody dying or everybody reaching some ethereal plane or something like that again, but it was just they found peace, they got over things, and they go off and they continue. So I think that was a great way. You don't have that as much anymore. I think sometimes everything has to be buttoned up. You know what I mean? But sometimes you just like the idea of them just continuing on, you know?
And
Um,
I do like that send off that we get. They get the message from Starfleet that they're to report back to be decommissioned. That means that they're all retiring. They're going about their future lives or whatever. But
no,
they don't go straight to
they're not
Starbase.
gonna do that. No.
I love he's quoting Peter Pan, second star to the right, straight on till morning. That's the course they're going to take. And of course, we
I
didn't
like the
mention
way they
Sulu
ended it
here
out.
either. Sulu is the captain of his own ship. He's on the Excelsior, and he has moved on from
Right,
being just part of the crew of the Enterprise to having his own ship and having his own career apart from the people he's been with for 30 years.
right,
Um, and it's great to see. Like, I love it when you realistically look and see that some of these people have made it to the point where yes, they get promotions and they move on with their lives. They're not just stuck on the same ship in the same role that they had forever.
right, right.
Like, I feel bad for Harry Kim on Voyager. Dude was
Yeah.
on that ship for 7 years in the Delta Quadrant, and never moved past ensign. I mean, come on, man, make him a lieutenant.
It's like you get into the role and you're just like, is there room for advancement? And you're like, maybe.
Well, if we move 75,000 light years away from home, then probably not. Give him a field
Sounds like it
commission,
sounds like an episode
Janeway.
from the lower decks. That's
Uh,
funny.
all right. Well, that does it for our Star Trek 6 talk. If you enjoyed this movie as much as we did, please join in on the conversation. Let us know what you think in the comments. Heck, even if you didn't like it, let us know what you think in the comments. And we'll tell you why you're wrong. Uh, Once again, we want to ask that you share this with your friends, family. If you like the show, then maybe they will too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you'll be aware of whenever we post something new. And that is it from us for today. So have a great whatever it is, wherever you are.
See ya.